Hello, friend. Welcome to Step Forward with Terri Mullen. If you're new here, welcome. If you have been following along for a while, welcome back, and thank you so much for being here. I'm a mom to 4 adults, a wife of 34 years, a midlife entrepreneur, and your confidence coach who transformed my own doubt into confidence to speak, write my book, start a podcast, and launch my own business. Now I empower other amazing women just like you to do the same. So lean in and learn how to crush that fear, amplify your voice, and build confidence to create your own impact and income. I'm here to encourage you and empower you every step of the way. Let's step forward. Welcome back. It's another fun Friday, and my friend Katie Jolly and I have real conversations about what's going on in our lives. Today, we dive into speaking up, knowing when to hold them and when to fold them. Listen in. I think you'll have some amazing takeaways from this conversation. So grab those headphones and let's step forward. Well, hello, Katie Jolly.
Hello, Terri Mullen.
I am so glad to do this again. We are on week 2 of having a fun Friday conversation. Even though it's going to be probably a more intense conversation, it's still fun because I get to be with you and see you. And last week went so well. We've had a lot of positive feedback. So thank you for doing this. I'm grateful just to show up here and be here with you, and we'll see what comes from today's conversation.
All right, let's go.
Let's go. So I had reached out and said to you, hey, what if we talk about the power of our voice and using our voice and what happens when we don't use it? Because I'm struggling with this as much as I teach this. I think anytime we teach things, this has been my mission to teach women to find their voice. And when we do these things, we continue to learn about ourselves right along the way. And I think kind of in a weird way, spiritual things happen to us and situations happen and make us learn even more about ourselves. And so I've had something this week that's happened where I feel really challenged to find my voice, to speak my truth. And I reached out to you and said, what do you think if we talk about this? And so should we dive into it?
Yeah,
it's going to be a heavier topic.
I'm in. Let's go.
Let's go for it. And I really would love your perspective on what you think, even from like a brain health perspective and bringing in any data that you have, because I think this is so important. But I think for women especially, and I found this in my own life, I spent a lifetime trying to find my voice. And I just did this 3-day intensive where I've had to go back. I did some really deep spiritual work and some coaching and had to go back in those moments where I lost my voice. I gave my power away to someone else. And I think it can be to a person, or you have a crisis or a situation in your life, or someone in your life that there becomes a fracture and you become fragmented. And so I just did some really deep work going back and finding that 60-year-old self. That's where I first started giving away my voice and my power. And then another moment in my life, during my marriage where I gave away my power. And so we went through this super cool exercise where I was able to go back and kind of piece those fragmented pieces back together and go back and get that girl.
Beautiful.
And remind her who she is and bring her back along with me. So, but how are you feeling? Like when I brought this up to you, you too, you're feeling like this is really important. And the more we show up here and we use our voice to help other people step forward with their lives, help them shine their light, help them believe in who they are, we get stretched and challenged too, don't we? I mean, in ways that kind of catch me by surprise sometimes.
Absolutely. And just as you're talking, Terri, I think it's looking at how we're built psychologically. As a child, we don't necessarily have a voice as a child. We're dictated by what our parents want, the rules, and we learn these behaviors in order to gain love, in order to feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
So as an adult, when we grow, it's this whole process, and I've read psychology models, which we've got the good child and the bad child. So the good child is compliant, right? You're compliant in order to get love.
Yeah.
And then the bad child puts the middle finger up to everybody in terms of finding a voice. It's we may become stubborn, we may yell. So we've got these two dynamics within us, even as adults, the good child and the bad child. And it's knowing when and how to move out of those dynamics to actually become the adult. So we don't need to tantrum to get ourselves heard. We don't need to people please to get ourselves heard. We have this safety within ourselves. And it's hard, I think, because we all get triggered and we fall into one of those two dynamics of people pleasing or putting the middle finger up to life,
Yes. And when we do that, when we put the middle finger up, that can be either, sometimes I think we can just shrink and go silent.
Yes.
Or we can scream and yell, become vocal, or we flee.
Yes.
That's the part of me where I'm like, screw you. And I will walk away and leave. I've left, different relationships. I've left certain jobs. And that's probably the sassy part of me that's outside the box as well. But that really, we talked about that last week. And that could be a good thing. It's not always bad, but that's so interesting. It kind of lines up with what you're saying. And I've always felt kind of this war, like the person on the outside that wants to look like the good girl, and I have been, and the people pleaser, and then the internal war of like, screw you. Yeah. and I've had this battle, and it feels conflicting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and I think from a brain health perspective, if you look at the amygdala, that fight or flight, freeze or fawn, those are our four methods of survival. When we feel triggered, we're really moving back to the youngest part of ourselves. Whereas when we're an adult and we're calm, and we feel secure and we feel safe within ourselves, we can communicate and we can speak our truth without feeling like there's some sort of danger coming towards us. And the interesting thing is that anchoring is within ourselves. Yeah. Through that spiritual connection. And I've got a friend who had a really turbulent childhood. She said to me, this was a few months ago, and she's a Christian, and she said, I never had a father, but my real father is always with me. So that created in a spiritual sense. Yeah. So it created a sense of safety within herself. Yeah. But I struggle with this too, Terri. I struggle with this too.
I love this. And I honestly, I think a lot of women do. And I don't mean to be gender specific, but that's always kind of where I'm going with a lot of this is always with women, depending what has happened in our childhood. And just, you and I live in two different countries. We're across the globe from each other. But there often feels like this commonality that women, no matter what, here we are in the 2024, and women still fight for their voice, fight to be heard, fight to be seen, in our careers. And also, I think, even just like you're talking about emotionally, And
I think you see this patterning. I was talking to a group last year about this, about, where did we lose our femininity?
Yeah.
Because that, in the softness, I really think for women, again, it's coming back to that one word, which is safety, is that we've become more aggressive in the workplace, potentially at home, like the hard-nosed goal setting, all this sort of thing. We've become more masculine because it's safe for us in those environments as well.
Wow. And it takes a lot of energy to do that, really. And to me, as you're talking, I'm feeling like I see the teenager part of me, like who's really fighting that, that's the part that's the yelling, or it's not the tantrum, but it's more that sassier part of me versus really just leaning into the femininity and knowing that you can lead with strength, with feminine energy. Yeah. That can be a strength. You can still be a really strong leader. That's probably something else that's really important to me. You can still be a really strong leader and be a strong woman in your own feminine energy without having to have that really hard nose or hard ass masculine trait.
And I was on a call last week with Barbara Gustafson, who is part of the Dr. Amen community. And she was saying they've done a clinical study on what's one of the main attributes that people admire in leaders. And the word that came back was calm, like calm-centeredness. And she said the clinical research, this is great for all the women, right? All the women out there, because it made people feel safe.
Wow. Well, that is a huge golden nugget and mic drop and takeaway moment, because we
Yeah.
all think, like, and I've talked about this before, that it had, confidence or whatever leadership, it seems like we always think it's like this strong bravado and this loudness. It's not. It's the quiet, calm inner strength, or even the way that presents outwardly,
Yeah.
because that makes people feel safe.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's really, for all the women listening, it's that nurturing, it's that nurturing energy,
Wow.
you know?
Wow. That's really, really great. That's a really powerful thing. So instead of, really feeling like we have to push, strive, and have this external masculine energy, there's power in being who we are as women.
Yeah,
and nurturing that
absolutely.
feminine part. Wow, that's really great. I love that so much. Let's talk a little bit about what causes us to shrink, because I actually am getting ready to post a video about this today, that who or what causes us as women to shrink and not step into who we really are, who we were created to be. We hide behind many things. It was even brought to my attention through this coaching, like my hat. That's kind of a fun thing that I wear. It's kind of identity and part of what I do. But she had me take it off because am I hiding underneath the brim? And I was like, so let's talk about that a little bit. Let's unpack some of that, because I think a lot of women and men too, this isn't just for women, but we hide behind who we really are, who we were really created to be. We shrink in the presence of other people. I have very strong personalities in my life. I've been very open about that. And we start sometimes to become who we're not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Unpack that a little bit for me.
Yeah, so just to share one of my experiences, as recent as last night, I went out to a gathering, and there was a person there who I have a lot of history with, and immediately I felt, and if I unpack it now as the adult, I felt unsafe and emotionally, because there's this childhood triggering that goes on, and I just felt myself absolutely shrink. And I became so quiet, and I wouldn't maintain eye contact with the person. I kind of sat at the table, and I was extremely quiet. And underneath all of that was just this intense anger.
Yeah. Well, that's your younger self, right? Like who's mad inside. Yeah.
So you got the good child and the bad child. So the patterning was that the good child shut her mouth. I shut her mouth to avoid conflict, to people please, but all of my personality disappeared in that moment, And
Wow.
I think I've seen it before, because I love looking at patterns, Terri. That I'd go into a work situation, and the employer would remind me of somebody in my childhood, their dynamic, normally being, loud, aggressive, pushy. And I would step into the people pleaser mode, and I would keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
So for all of us, I think it's understanding a lot of that triggering is coming from our childhood, and being aware of it in those moments, and being able to calm down. And also understand, I don't know, I think I'm still working through this, Terri, is it useful at that point to speak up, or is it just going to open up a wasp nest? Because that's how I felt last night. Like, if I hadn't have completely shut down, it would have caused almighty fury in the home.
And you're with a group of other people, so which is always interesting, because I think that personality knows that, and that's very intentional.
Yes,
in those settings,
absolutely,
and to keep you quiet so that you won't speak up.
Yeah, but it's being aware of those patterns, so that when you, I guess, in daily life, is understanding that we are not our pattern, that we use that pattern to feel safe. So the more that we feel safe internally now, whether that's using breathing, mindfulness, the breath is one of the biggest things, because we often hold our breath when we feel unsafe, or we breathe fast, or we breathe shallow.
Yeah.
being able to anchor into ourselves again.
Yeah, that's really good. I was just going to ask you, what did you need in that moment? And
probably not to be there. Because I didn't want to go.
Yeah, right. So let's say, so you are in that situation, you are present. What is something someone could do? Well, number one, I think awareness, that's super huge, right? And that's the growth. That's the growth in you. That's the work you've done personally. That's the work you've done these last several years with your own healing journey and the work you're doing with Dr. Amen and the brain health, right? It's kind of this beautiful picture, this beautiful combination so that you can take this, and where there's always these lessons so that we can take these and go help someone else move forward. So for someone listening in, when you're in that situation, number one, I think being able to identify it, because so often we are blinded. We're wearing blinders on our eyes. We don't even see it. And the people pleaser in us really shows up. We come home, we feel like crap. We feel so badly about ourselves. We shrink. We're not even being who we are created to be, right? So now you have this awareness, you're around this person, you know this person's personality, and let's say you have to be there for whatever reason, or you choose to be there. Where do you sit? You sit further away from that person. What exercises can you do so that you feel empowered? And you've told me you're tall. I was so surprised.
Yeah, I am tall.
Katie's 5'8", so she's got a presence.
I'm 5'10".
Oh, wait, 5'10". Oh my, so you are tall. You have a presence about you. And so for you to kind of shrink, that makes me sad. I see you as just such an amazing woman. It's your light, and it's your light that someone's trying to put out. It's your light that is disrupting their unhappiness, their unworthiness, their not feeling qualified. Because you walk in with this strength, Katie, your love, your light, your wisdom, you make people feel safe, all the things that you need. So you disrupt the qualities in that other person that they're just not happy with. You're shining a light on it. And it starts to get, I think, even more agitated, and it's not comfortable, and it's really going to put you in your place, right?
And I think that, we've all got these different situations, like when we're in a situation that we can't get out of. If we're in a situation that discomfort's sitting there, then when I was there last night, I was just doing a lot of belly breathing, trying to calm myself down, but I could feel this volcano. And the thing is that if I allowed the emotion to surface, it would have, just exploded probably on everybody that was in the room. So the impact of that. So that was my choice to be quiet at that time. But I think if we're in situations like in our professional life, or even being scared of speaking on camera, which you teach amazingly, is really looking at the root of where that fear comes from. It's always going to be centered in some sort of childhood or past experience that we may be projecting, especially with other people, we may be projecting our past onto that person that's in front of us. So it was quite funny. When I was at school, an English teacher said to me, there was this particular English teacher, and he said, you're not a writer. Just, I'm not going to give you the grade that you think you deserve because you're just not any good. And then in the workplace, when I have come across people who have had the same tone, or they may have even used the same language, immediately I go into that place of not feeling worthy, because it's a triggering. So if we're in those situations, it can be really helpful to go, okay, who do you remind me of right now?
Oh, so good. Yeah.
Who do you remind me of? And having that thought in your head when they're actually in front of you, who are you behaving like right now that it's triggering me? And then realizing that the person in front of you is not your past.
Really good. I'm processing that. That's really good.
Because I think it helps. And this is what I've said to people. It was from a therapist that I saw. And she said, whenever you're in emotional overwhelm, it's actually your 3-year-old self that has taken control of the steering wheel.
That makes sense to me. That completely makes sense. Really makes sense. And so in that moment, I mean, I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of you, to be able to be there and then to have this awareness to look back. And this has happened to me too. I've done this before too. And I see myself in these situations where I start to do that. And because of the work I've done too, where I will now go, oh, okay. But when you're in that situation, sit there, kind of breathe, be quiet, and then go home. And now you're able to unpack it a little bit today and make decisions for what happens going forward, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And not being unkind to yourself, being proud of yourself for having this awareness, because I think so much of it really is kind of a secret sauce, is being, this was really triggering for me. I'm proud of myself, giving ourselves credit for the way I responded. And in this situation, I don't think you gave away your power. I think you actually stood in your power. You chose not to react, which is also huge in situations with difficult people, often narcissistic personalities, and it's what I say, and knowing that it's not you, and then to go home now and kind of unpack this and be proud of that girl.
Yeah,
be proud of her.
I mean, it's like, I think quite often, like if we look at the good child and the bad child dynamic sometimes, and that's how I felt like last night, like I was actually holding the reins on a raging stallion inside of me that really wanted to explode.
Yeah. 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 And I think as you're talking, it's even making me think about the power of our voice. Even though we don't speak up, that doesn't mean we're being silenced.
Ooh, yes.
We're not being silenced. The difference is being quiet and not knowing why, but making that choice in that moment for others that are around in that dynamic. You're making a confident decision that you're aware of what's happening. Am I making any sense? Does that make sense?
You are, and it reminds me of one of Dr. Amen's techniques to help the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex is involved in all of your planning and decision making. And the two words that Dr. Amen uses is then what. So if I speak up right now, then what?
Yes.
And that's where I was in my situation last night, because I knew, firstly, I was emotionally unstable, right? That's why I felt shrunk down. So using the then what, if I open my mouth right now, I know that something spiteful is probably going to roll out of it. And then that's going to cause, fireworks in the home.
Yeah.
So the then what can be really, really helpful. But I think understanding, from getting back to what you really want to discuss, Terri, understanding that our voice has a place, and learning those kind of boundaries of safety, creating that safety internally. Yeah, it's so important. If we feel safe, we're more likely to talk.
Yeah. And that's probably a whole conversation for another podcast, in that, what do you do in those situations where you don't feel safe, or maybe you have been verbally violated? And when do you speak up? When is it worth that risk, per se, for lack of a better word? But I think, how are you feeling today? How do you feel now? Do you feel tired? Do you feel depleted? How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I kind of went into over-analysis paralysis last night, just unpacking it and looking at the patterns, at the patterns of behavior. And it was really my behavior in childhood as well, because my family dynamic, everybody was quite loud, and so I would shrink. I would shrink because, and even now in situations, it's funny, in the professional world, I've been in situations like with a group of professionals, and we were setting up a health initiative, and there was a lot of ego, and a lot of really fighting to get their voice heard. And I would just completely step back. I'm like, nah, I'm not into this ego competition,
Yeah.
So, but understanding that dynamic for myself isn't necessarily useful, but most of the shrinking happens when again, even just coming down to the amygdala and the way the brain operates, if we can get calm in that moment and really get centered primarily by using our breath or feeling your body, you know, how they use the rubber band technique in psychology, how you flick the rubber band, feeling into your feet, feeling into your body, the more present we are 100% in the moment, I think that gives us a really good platform to speak up.
I love that. I really love that. So really being centered in that moment, being mindful of what's going on, at breathing and just being present with yourself.
And
That's
also
really
knowing,
powerful.
I think I was chatting to somebody about this the other day, also knowing your, I guess like if you're playing a game of poker, right? Knowing the odds, knowing your odds of safety. And what I mean by this is thinking, okay, if I speak up, is my safety compromised at this point? You know, so for people like your clients that are speaking on camera and they're putting themselves out in the public arena, there's actually no danger. The only thing that's going to come back to them is some dork on social media going, your hair's not right, or you need to lose some weight, or your teeth are funny. You know, like there's no actual real danger using their voice in this space. You know, it's childhood stuff of public speaking. You know,
and just the fear of being judged. You know, the fear. That's probably what it is. But you know, that's exactly what that is: fear of being judged.
But does that judgment, like just like that poker game, like what are my odds here? Is that judgment really going to compromise my self-esteem? You know, does somebody in, I don't know, I was going to say Uganda, ashwagandha, which is a herb.
Oh.
You know,
is it
really going to hurt me?
Yeah.
Is it really going to hurt me? And 9 times out of 10, it's no. You know, speaking up won't. But sometimes, like for me last night, if I had have said something, knowing the dynamic that you're in and being aware of that safety, but keeping quiet can stop the spill. You know, stop the emotional spill.
Yeah, that's really good because it makes me think of the song "Know When to Hold 'Em and When to Fold 'Em" kind of thing. So it's basically, right? That's what it's in my head. That's what I was thinking. That's what came to me. Yeah, but that's true. I think that's it. I think that's really one key takeaway as we're talking about this. When you find yourself shrinking and not able to use your voice in a like a relational setting, and even often, I mean, even in work, it's different because there are times where you have to speak up, but really having an understanding of the situation, you know, like you said, being here on video, speaking up on video, different kind of shrinking and being afraid. That's just fear. And that just takes some practice and letting go of your own limiting beliefs of what other people are going to think. And you're not, those are different than when you're experiencing a situation where speaking up really has potential for even further emotional harm sometimes.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And when to walk away from that, had enough, peace out, kind of a whole different thing. And then also then in a career, that's different when you have to speak up for yourself, know your worth, that kind of a little bit different, all three kind of different dynamics. But I always appreciate your honesty about it. Just where you are, this is what makes you so awesome, is that you just really are so transparent and vulnerable and share kind of where you are. And I respect that so much. It helps all of us grow, you know, because then we realize that we're not alone and we're all on this journey together. And I think what makes really great coaches really great is that vulnerability of, hey, I'm in this too. I'm a human being. I'm not perfect. The ones that think they've got it all together aren't great coaches. Run from them. Right? Because this is the journey. This is life. We're all in this together. We're constantly growing and learning. And it makes it kind of fun. It makes it hard when we're willing to put ourselves out there and lead and help others. We also put ourselves in a situation we have to do our own deep work constantly.
Yeah,
constantly.
More so, I think. More so because you're, you know, and that was, I don't know if it was a Tony Robbins quote, but you can't take people somewhere you haven't been yourself.
Amen. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
I mean, anytime a coach thinks that, or someone feels like they're not qualified to coach and teach somebody, what qualifies you is where you've been.
Yeah.
Where have you been? What have you gone through in your life? What have you overcome?
Yeah.
because that will help somebody else, just like what we're talking about now. When you overcome these things, these childhood traumas, these hard things that you've been through in your life, and you find ways with tools like with what you have to get on the other side of them. You sit there and you learn how to breathe. You snap a rubber band on your wrist. You put your feet on the ground and remind yourself who you are. That's how you get on the other side, is having that awareness. Doesn't mean we're never going to experience it again, but we've learned tools that empower us to help us get on the other side. And so that we're not spending 5 days in bed because of a situation with, like, I have experienced something very similar. And there are times where I was in bed for 3 days just and ruminating over something because someone made me feel so small. And I didn't even know what it was. I couldn't even put my finger on it. But now you're able to go, it's that childhood issue. It's that person. It's that voice. Okay, fine. I'm not going to play this game. I see you. I'm going to sit here and be myself. I'm going to breathe. And tomorrow's a new day.
Because I think it's really interesting psychologically with people, because quite often, unless we have that awareness, we are just patterning out our childhood dynamics. Like even in a marriage, I had conversations with my husband and I said, who are you behaving like right now?
Oh, that's so good.
Where did you learn that? And then, of course, I wasn't teaching from a place of perfect. I said, look, when I go into this pattern, this is who I'm being. I'm replaying how my mother would have dealt with the situation, because I've learned that pattern from childhood, just from observation.
Yeah.
And then when we go into the workplace, understanding that we're interacting with everybody else's inner 3-year-old as well. So even if we do speak up and the other person reacts, that's their 3-year-old reacting.
Yeah, that's so good.
And especially on social media, when you get negative comments, that's their 3-year-old reacting. Yeah. It's not coming from a place of adult behavior.
Yeah. But that's so good too, just to realize, and how many people get triggered by that and want to just go after that person and respond rather than there's another person, there's another great situation. Yeah. The best thing you can do in that situation, using your voice, is like not responding to that.
Yeah, but the other thing is really interesting.
So
last year, in one of the bigger groups that I'm in, I put a post up and there was a guy that responded, and his comments were horrible to me. They were absolutely horrible, like debunking. I think I put something in there on mindset or brain health, and totally debunking what I'd put. And I started, like boiling from within.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, oh, I want to get you.
Yeah, exactly.
But I left it for a little bit and then I replied and I said, thank you, because this is a really powerful sentence. Thank you for your opinion. You're obviously a very educated and knowledgeable person. Best wishes for your life. And do you know what he responded? And he said, oh my gosh, he said, my comments were filled with so much venom for you, and yet you've responded like this.
Wow, Katie Jolly. And you have so much grace. I'm sitting here. Can you say that sentence again? Thank you for responding.
I said, I can't quite remember it. But
sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Thank you for responding. You're obviously a very informed and educated person.
Excellent.
Best wishes for you.
So whatever that situation is, I mean, I had you read. I didn't care if it was exactly the same.
No, it wasn't exactly the same.
Yeah. But just that frame for any of us, because it's so easy to get triggered on social media or with anyone. Thank you so much. You're obviously a blah, blah, blah. Fill in the blank. I wish you the best. And walk away. There are times where you just walk away.
Yeah.
Know when to hold them, when to fold them.
I think part of having our own voice, right, is understanding that if we're allowed our voice, then so is everybody else. Right? We may not like their voice. We may not like their opinion. But if we step, and this is an aha moment for me for last night, is that if we just respect that they're allowed a voice too, they're allowed to be however they want to be, not in all situations, obviously, but being able to say, thank you for your opinion.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It doesn't mean that you take it on and become the people pleaser and change your voice. But quite often being able to say, thank you. That's a great opinion for you, for you.
But you do that so well, so graciously. That'd be so great for you to even put out some comments. Like when you feel triggered, what are a few key phrases that you can have to say back? I've had to do this in my own life. I was notorious for being a yes person, saying yes to everything, everyone, even when I knew I couldn't do it. And my mother-in-law, God bless her, she's like, okay, I've had enough. And she made me write no in big black bold letters and put it on a Post-it note by every phone that I had.
Wow.
And she'd be standing there, somebody called me, and she'd be pointing at the, and because I was so automatic in my response that when I was able to rehearse my response in a head and I had something concrete, because my brain was like, whatever the word is, maybe trying to keep me sick. I don't know. I was on automatic. Once I had something tangible, it changed my behavior. And it took a while. It wasn't overnight. I made 2 steps forward, 2 steps back sometimes. But I had something concrete, just like this, like the phrase, like, thank you so much. Whatever that word is, it's so great. That'd be great to put something like that out there.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Terri.
Yeah. Well, I think we've given people some really great takeaways. This is something that Katie and I both have struggled with just in this last week as I'm helping women find their voice. And Katie, too, you do the same thing. You help people find their voice. You help them own who they are, believe in themselves with their mental health, really, don't you think? Is that a right word? Right? Am I saying it right?
That's my passion, is that mental health is brain health. Yeah. So, I think that it's just so important for all of us to come to just know that whatever negative behavior is going on, whether it's in ourselves or in others where we might be shrinking, or the person across from us is yelling, or we might be falling apart, it's really all coming back to that base of safety. And if we feel safe, if we can use the breath anchoring, because the breath is the number one thing that changes, and lack of oxygen to the brain, even a little bit, is detrimental, and you're not going to make good decisions. So if we're in situations that we need to speak up, like your client speaking on camera, being able to spend some time centering, anchoring, feeling safe, and then open the lips and.
Yeah, that's so good, because that's actually one of the things I teach is before you start, always breathe. And that's I have a routine that I do. That's always the first thing I do is really breathe. So I think that's such a great takeaway is make sure you're breathing. Make sure you have an awareness of what's going on. You don't always have to respond. Sometimes using your voice is choosing to be quiet in that situation and then go home and kind of unpack it. I think feeling really centered and grounded is so great. Like remembering who you are, where you are, putting your feet on the ground. And what else? Was there another one that you said? Those are 3 things. I think they're just so powerful. Really great. So I hope that helps everyone. Thank you. I love doing this. I love having these conversations with you. I learn so much about myself and more about you. And I'm just so grateful for our friendship and the paths we've taken independently and together.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Love ya. Love you.
I love you
Terri
too.
Mullen.
All right, everybody. Have an awesome day. Hope those are some great takeaways for you. All right. God bless. Thank you so much for listening in and for being here. I hope you have a few key takeaways that you can apply to your life, something that will help you step forward, to be audacious, to be bold and brave, and step forward with those goals that you have. And if you need a little help, I'm here to help you. We can devise a plan that can help you move forward and be confident on camera or behind a microphone and grow your business by being authentically you. I'd love it if you could just take a few moments and leave a review. It's how I know that people are listening in and it's helping someone out there. So at the end of this podcast, just click those 5 stars and leave a review. All right, have an amazing day. God bless. Until we meet again.